This is the Janine Bolon Show.
Hi, this is Janine Bolon, and once again, thank you for joining us here on the Janine Bolon Show. We are already on episode 7, and when I say episode 7, I mean season 7. Episodes have really just flown by, and I just want to say thank you so much for continuing to listen to us. We appreciate that. And the reason why today's episode is particularly fun for me is the fact that we're bringing in one of my practical mystics, and I enjoy so much the practical mystic show that I had. And when we syndicated, we kind of had to merge 4 shows into one. And today's guest is Jason Antalek, also known as Akasha Shaman. He is a leading figure in the metaphysical and speaking industries. I know this because I have sat across from him in many a conference. As the managing director of the Los Angeles Speakers Bureau, it brings over, I think it's 25 years of experience he brings to the conferences that he's a part of. He also helps people unlock their potential through not only his intuitive guidance, but you know me, I'm very practical mystic. So is Jason. He's got practical strategies. This is what I love about him. He's also the producer and co-host of the Abundant Soul Conference, which is kind of a premier event. We'll be talking about this a little bit later on, where they are really dedicated to connecting the metaphysical as well as the holistic business leaders in our group. The biggest thing is, though, most people may not know this about Jason, is his diverse background, because he was at one time the CEO of the Public Speakers Association, and he does high-profile event management for many major organizations. Thanks so much for being a part of the show, Jason.
Janine, I'm so excited to be here with you today. I love that you shared so much of the experience. You know, the best part of that is how you and I know each other and the time that we've had together. You're literally sitting across from each other, not just at conferences, at fairs, at workshops, events. We've seen each other all over the place doing so many things. I think those before breakfast for the Sacred Way Fair. Those are some of my favorite mornings. To pancakes, pancakes.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Lots of pancakes. I
yeah.
remember that was our big thing, was we'd sit together, have some pancakes, catch up on what was happening with each other's businesses, and then moving on from there. And I remember some of the struggle, and I would like to talk a little bit about that, is there are so many people who are very excited about the psychic skill set that they may start building on, whether they're a Reiki master, whether they read oracle cards, or they're very good at pendulums. It doesn't matter what their skill set is. They're like, I want to do this full time because of the high that they get. And I would love for you to chat a little bit about that high that they get tapping into the spiritual realm and then wanting to do that full time.
Ooh, I got stories for that one, man.
I
I've been riding
know.
a crazy wave of miracles since the 17th of May in this wave. So there's a lot to tell in the big and the short term. I would say early on, because as you mentioned, as a practical mystic, right? I would call myself more an intuitive than a psychic, I guess, because working with the Akashic records is more of kind of a database, logical type approach to things from my perspective.
Oh,
And
and
so,
I'm gonna pause you right there, because not everybody knows what the Akashic records are. If you
oh,
wouldn't be
oops,
so
did I?
no, no, right, no, no. This is my job as an interviewer. I get to play and ask the questions, right? So yeah, help me out, dude. What's the Akashic records for my people who don't know that one?
Oh man, I just slipped that right in there, didn't I? Well, for our listeners and for ourselves, really, it's always about what it is for us first, because we're in this individuated experience. So I would say your Akashic record is the journey of your soul from the very beginning.
And
So an
that's
in,
intense.
yeah, that's a lot of info. Now, if we stack all of those, everything that's had an interaction, whether it's a soul or a planet, a galaxy, a universe, there's a record of all that stuff stored energetically, kind of like universal internet, if you will. So how do we how getting data out of that is kind of a it's great to get it, but it can be a lot. So interpretation's important, which is why logic really works for me in that sense. So being connected to that information, and as you said, getting the high. When you said that, it was really interesting for me because what actually happened was that I was looking for answers for myself, compounded by, coming out of addiction, having a brain injury, being caught up in the corporate world again, trying to really find a pathway. Uh, Taking some time off from work in my recovery, I got really focused on something that was, the unseen, the metaphysical, because nothing really made sense. So when I was asking questions, the Akashic records began to deliver for me, and it wasn't giving me all the answers, but it's a place where they are. So there's still some interpretation to be had there. And to address the high that you're talking about, and why I found out I wanted to do this kind of work full time, was because I experienced such incredible healing. The accuracy of the information, it took care of my skeptical side, but over, especially that first 6 months, the amount of healing that I experienced, and then the way it retracted when I stopped doing the work, tried to go back to corporate, and then I corporate failure, not good. Jason needs to not do this anymore. And then when I got back to the work and took, a less impactful role in my life, less responsibility, and kind of started that balance and that transition for myself into this work full time. And now, 5 years later, I'm still finding ways to jump on the miracles and reignite those sparks. I feel like that's likely true in a lot of industries. I think the foundational difference for us in what we do as practical mystics, and now sharing in the business world, is that we just come with a little different way of doing things.
One of the ways that you and I have talked about frequently has been when you're dealing with entrepreneurs, specifically in the spiritual space. Yeah, you have those that are highly competitive and still see competition everywhere, but you're going to run into more empaths. And the empathic nature of a lot of people is they're not out for the competition. They're out for their segment, their share of what they know is a very large pool. So, do you care to talk to us a little bit about, as entrepreneurs, we have a whole different framework for how we do our marketing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, use your superpowers how you want. We all have superpowers. Excuse me. I'm a firm believer that we all have superpowers, and we can direct those however we like, and whatever ways we figure out how to stack them and do them. Our philosophies and our beliefs in that is what we follow. And I'm not here to judge others and how they do it. What I know in our segment, in this, say, metaphysical, holistic, aligned industries, is that we've a lot of us have taken the time to deprogram from certain things. We've asked a lot of the questions that get us to our own truths. And as that unfolds and we see how productive it is, how well it works, not just for us, but for others, once we've embodied what we do, there's your key, you guys. There's your one big takeaway. You got to embody how you're going to help others. We can't do it until we've done it for ourselves. That's where you start, and likely keep going. Because we've done that work, we have refined our superpowers, but we have to deliver what we do in a way that's based on the adjustments we've made, how we've unplugged, what are our new beliefs, our new truths, what aligns for us. And that is the approach that makes business different from the say the metaphysical, heart-centered, holistically aligned perspective.
So talk to us a little bit more about that, if you don't mind, because to me, it's all very airy-fairy, right? We talk about being in alignment and the hard work we've done and all that, and it's true. I mean, you and I, we've had enough breakfast together that I know that, when we were working at the fairs, that you've done the work as well. But really, what does that look like? I mean, as far as practical go-to tips, what are some of the things that you have gone through that you encourage others so that they can really define not only what their superpower is, but also how you go about embodying that? Because that's kind of the rub, isn't it?
You're dead on point there. And I recently, though I missed breakfast and pancakes that day, had the
Right.
joy of you and I at the Sacred Way Fair,
Right.
just a few weeks ago, sitting next to each other. And I was so grateful for us to be sitting next to each other, 'cause there was a struggle in that day for me. I was feeling frustrated about how to show up and be honest and be fully responsible, not to take responsibility for others, but for how I'm showing up. And in those moments, because I know I'm a communicator, it's one of my abilities. Authenticity is kind of a superpower for me. I understand that through my view in my Akashic record. So just to be clear, that's where it comes from. Uh, Communicating and expressing myself, and sometimes when I'm mixed up, to have somebody to listen and to be able to give me feedback in that moment and to be open to actually hear it. That is a thing that I've earned along the way within myself in my choices. But Janine, you were sitting right next to me, reminding me why we do the things that we do, why we show up, and why you were there, which was even a bigger reason, which really put me in a place to feel comfortable and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with right now. And you were able to bat back a couple of perspectives. I believe perspective is it's kind of free, okay? It's extremely valuable. Someone can just hand it over in some way. It doesn't have to be adopted. It can be tried on like a jacket, right? But if the jacket fits, man, and it can be useful, I'm going to consider it. So just the listening to the guidance of somebody next to me, knowing that I'm an expressive person and I authentically want to show up. And I'm not trying to be so big as to help others, but to present a perspective that could maybe assist them on their journey, help them on their journey, right? And that's exactly what I experienced. So I really feel like there's a couple of lessons in there. We're asking the questions of ourselves, even when I'm in the midst of producing big things and making bigger moves in my community. There's still the question of how do I want to show up in this, and having that mentorship, to having somebody that I love, know, and trust to talk to. Yeah, that's one of the biggest factors, is not being isolated, because there's a lot of us going through similar things, and somebody that cares about us, even just for a moment, can really, can really add to the journey in a way that moves us into inspired action rather than reaction. I knew in those moments I was in reaction, and you were there to hold space with me in that moment and remind me that it was a reaction, which put me in a place to ask the right questions
Mhm.
and answer them that day. In the past, I wouldn't have been able to see all that, but because we were there in a practical environment and able to have the conversations, and they were throughout the day. It wasn't like 1 hour session of anything. It was, but that's a perfect reason why coming together in those, fair environments, conferences, coming together as leaders in our community, to me seems really, really important.
And we do talk a lot about community building as you become more aware of your spiritual gifts, however you choose to define yourself, whether you want to classify yourself as an intuitive, a psychic, a medium. There's a lot of different ways you can be labeling yourself. One of the things that really struck out for me that I was very appreciative of was how you talk about you and I don't heal people. That was something that I have struggled with, is because of the spiritual gifts I carry. I know how little involvement there really is in my participation in someone else's quote, quote, healing, that literally it's just giving them permission to start healing themselves. And I would love for you to share what you know on that, because that was something we were not able, I'm being very selfish here. That was something we were not able to go into depth on while we were
Uh,
at the fair. And I would love for you to share what you know on that.
Well, and I feel honored. I got goosebumps all over right now, because you just batted that whole thing back and really demonstrated exactly what we're talking about in our world, and how showing up for each other and being able to ask these kind of questions, right, and get another perspective. To answer that, I would tell you thirsty horses. Right? Which sounds like a great name for a country band, but for
I'm
your
thinking
listeners,
ding, ding, ding,
I'm
ding, 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 ding.
right. I'm a rocker. They don't know I'm a long-haired rocker, but I'm from the arena rock days. Okay, I'm huge. Like, I'm a Slash fan. All right, let's just lay it out there. So thirsty horses. I mean, if you try to convince a horse that it needs to have a drink, until it's willing and aligned with that. And there's what I mean by aligned, right? There's a perfect version. It's not just, okay, I recognize maybe the horse could use a drink. He's breathing heavy. He's not quite ready yet. So I'm going to take him over there for it. But I may have to stand there for a few minutes till if he feels like it's time. And he may not. Having traveled with horses and being recently reminded how much fun that really was, they absolutely, have a way of letting things come together for them. right? They're also very reactionary creatures, but they're thoughtful and they know what they want. I think that's part of the key right there in what we're getting to is knowing what you want. When you can answer that, it's a lot easier. If somebody wants to heal, it will be a lot easier for them. If they are in love with the idea of healing, they're getting there possibly. And what I would say is we're backing up to an awareness. If we're in an awareness, if I am in awareness that something has come up for me that I want to heal, just like what we talked about, I know I'm willing and open to that. I can open those doors much quicker than I used to be able to. But I used to need to go through the emotion and the mental and the tear myself up and the what did my family say and what is society making me do, right? 100% of my choices, my negative choices involve others. Uh, when I was open to healing, especially when I first started working within the records, as I referenced earlier, some of that happened because I really wanted it. I really wanted to feel better. I wanted to be better. I wanted to actually share the information that I was getting. Most of it out of skepticism. Okay, at first, that first like 5 to 10 readings, I'm like, really, this is gonna work? It totally does. I know it now. But then I even was working through those kinds of questions. So I would encourage listeners, to if you're looking for healing, wherever you're at in that, you're already aware of it. So you've taken a step. Give yourself credit for that step and rather than beat myself up over it, over not healing, then I'm actually looking at what can get me there.
I
Once
think that
I've
makes sense.
embodied a healing, I have a way to explain it to others, and rather than try to heal them, I can share with them how it happened for me.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of what our work is giving people space, number one, to be able to speak and know that they're being heard. And then the second thing is giving them space to heal themselves. And one of the things that I've enjoyed of our conversations is that many of the clients that come to us, they actually are having to give up on the attention they receive for being ill. Like many families, it behooves a person to be ill because it's a safer place than if they become healthy because of the environment they're in. And as shamans, one of the things I love is how we ask those 5 questions, what are you eating? When was the last time you danced? When was the last time you sang? Who do you live with? Where do you live? Like we ask very targeted questions like that on purpose. And so talk to us a little bit about those people who maybe are in an environment and they kind of need a little bit more awareness that maybe the reason they're not healing as quickly as they would like is they need to make sure that they're in a safe place to be healed.
Those are the perfect questions to be asking ourselves. And frankly, the reason that we will ask them is because a journey of awareness is going to send us inward. And you're going to have to answer those questions for yourselves. We referenced earlier how we're going to go after the truth. And what does that look like in a practical way? You just shared it with us. That's exactly it. And it's every person's internal version of the search of those questions and answers, right? We're adopting something in our mental space. We're trying to get our intellectual mind satisfied so that we can let go and absorb the other side of it that's unseen that we can't explain. If I satisfy my intellectual mind enough, the other part will go, oh, okay, that's fine. I can deal with it now. And I think that there's parts of us that we address along the way, and asking those questions, are you safe? Right? If I'm not safe, if I'm not in a safe environment, but maybe I didn't realize that before because I wasn't aware.
Mhm.
And maybe I knew it, but nobody had ever asked me that. Right? So those questions are about awareness. And sometimes it's a brand new question to somebody. Other times they already know it and it's bringing it up, which is a reflection. So either way, that what I'm really getting to is that awareness is a step. So even in my life, if I didn't know something up until yesterday might have been a problem, and today it looks a little different, I might take a look at it. I'm at least going to ask some questions, and that's really where everybody's going. The difficulty comes in asking the questions and not getting answers quickly or sufficient, and we don't often know which ones are going to get answered right away and which ones take forever. or never. It happens. And that's why some of that, having faith in ourselves, that awareness is a step of faith in ourselves, is the way I see it. And have a faith in another power outside yourself if you want to or not.
Mhm.
But have a faith in something,
Mhm.
because there is that unseen, and recognizing the unseen, the extra, the energy, however we come to it, is worth paying attention to. And I think what you're asking, those questions, those 5 questions, get someone there very, very quickly.
Mhm. It does. And I've watched you through your processes as well, helping people get to their answers. And I know over and over the one thing that pops up frequently in the Sacred Wayfair and the other fairs that we're a part of when we do our work has been people knowing what they want. So talk to us a little bit about how you finally got to your place of knowing what you want, because you were having to work through a lot of recovery, and that was because you really didn't know what you wanted, except you just wanted out of pain, right? So talk to us a little bit about that.
I got a perfect story for that one. I just recently in May, because you heard me say earlier, I had that wave of miracles that started May 17th of 2024. On the 18th, I was at a law of retreat, or excuse me, law of attraction retreat. And I got to meet Dr. Joe Vitale and a whole slew of other folks that I'm very much connected to, and now working with the LA Tribune, and some old friends from the Spirit Heart Cruise, that are also producers for the Abundant Soul event. And I went into that situation with two things. One that was really obvious to me, that was an intention, and another underlying piece that occurred. The intention was to move the blocks of abundance in my world, whatever those were, and I was willing to address those in all of the ways. And that has been a huge part of the motion of miracles. It's one of the reasons I'm sitting with you here today, and
Mhm.
why you're part of the conference, and why it's going out is literally part of that. I proclaimed in the conference, honestly, that evening of May 18th was when that choice was made. I, the underlying piece for me was that in my recovery, as you mentioned, and thank you for bringing it up, because it really ties it together to share, is that I was tired of these migraines. That they are derailers, man, and I just without the pain, I would be happy. Like, even leave me with the symptoms of the goofiness and those other things. Just get rid of the pain itself. And since then, that's been true. And I have a lot less what I would call episodes. We used to say my grandma Misty would have an episode, but it was really just an ego trip. But I mean an actual episode where I would have a some kind of goofy combination of flashback or headache, and dizziness, vertigo, not being able to pull my words, whatever that might be in those moments. After that event, the headaches that were frequent, I've had maybe 2 or 3 since then, right? And we're months away, and that's like one a month maybe, instead of once a week or so. But what's funny, Janine, what's really interesting in it, and it's the next layer to work on, and here's a great message for our listeners, your listeners here, to understand that there's layers to things, and that's okay. Is that while there's still not the pain, I still hit a wall right about 9:30 or so. I hit the old guy wall, and I just I look at my girl. And go, I think it's time to go to bed, and she just nods. I think it's time to go tuck you in. So
You're starting to slur your words. And
yeah, you get up early in the morning, and you pray. You spend your day being productive, because I'm in inspired action. I also have to pay attention in that space to keep myself hydrated, to eat, right, to keep my energy up, and to ground myself sometimes when I get super excited, because I can be pretty enthusiastic. And one of the things I learned directly from Dr. Joe Vitale actually is to take that energy, and rather than expand it and try and get rid of it, I pull it in now. So that excitement actually pulls in, and helps me drive. And then when I ran into some negative space, because I want people to be here for this conference, right? And I want butts in the seats. And there's part of me that's like, how do we get them all there? Rather than fall into the stress of that, which is what I would play in and convince myself of previously, I pull that into that excitement and keep it as close to me as I can, and use the tools, the simplest tools that I have, to stay in that inspired action. If I'm beating myself up over what could be or what might not happen, I'm making that up. I'm making it up. I'm in a different place. So
Hmm.
really for me it's about reeling it in and being in the moment and staying in inspired action rather than getting caught up in the things that we fabricate.
Right. And one of the things that I do love about every event planner I have ever spoken to has that in the almost a mantra of, "Well, I need butts in seats," right? It's part of the entire industry. And I remember the first time that somebody was talking about the law of attraction and Esther Hicks and all that, and they actually talk about how do you send it off to the program manager. Like, you whenever you're thinking about it, you send it to the program manager. The program manager is going to handle it, and you are going to focus on your inspired action. Easier said than done. So even though you may have the tools and you know what you're supposed to do with the tools, there's still that human element that can really kind of mess you up a little bit. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we move on to the conference?
Well, I wanted to reflect that something you shared earlier that was in line with what you just said. Like the condensing of four different shows into one when you syndicated. I
Yes.
would imagine there was an adjustment in that for you because it's a whole different way of doing things. And you were doing four shows and now you're doing one, but with a whole different way of promoting and marketing and looking at those things. And there's a transition and adjustment, and there's still I did all of these things. Like Friday morning coffees, we get an opportunity to share bits of
Yes.
that, and we used to be able to have the we used to be on those shows doing them, and it progresses over time. And then when we make those changes, yeah, we're still human. So how our schedule looks. How we interact with others, what we talk about with our how we're closing down certain aspects of our business and changing tracks, that's the same as doing the internal work. Some of that takes a second. It takes a little bit of time for it all to happen. And there's parts of it that are moving. Some of it's really fast. The inspired action is that, yeah, I know I'm going to do this concert. Janine, yeah, you're going to go get syndicated. There's still a lot of steps that occur in that. So yeah, handing it over to the program manager, which is, us at
Right.
first.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's for sure in that.
Right. Yeah, we like
No,
to call it a future Jason problem or a future Janine problem, but still in the moment, you're trying to stay in that inspired action. And that can be a bit of a mind bender, especially if you realized, oh, I didn't meditate as long as I probably needed to today, or whatever your thing is. So anyway, but do talk to us a little bit about the abundant um, conference, but mainly because the Abundant Soul Conference, the way that you have that set up, that was really a neat story of how it came together and why. The why behind this conference to me is really why I was like, oh, Jason, please invite me. And then you did. So thank you. Anyway, talk to us about why you're putting that conference together.
oh, I'm so blessed for you to ask that question, and I really, really appreciate you being open about how that came to be for you. I've received a lot of really positive feedback in just from the beginning, and it started out as an idea because I was working with a couple of local shops and finding out that some of them know each other and some of them don't. And it's hard for me to understand how I would have a metaphysical shop on one part of a small town and not be friends with the folks who had them on the other
I
side of
know.
town.
I
And that
know.
it's just so automatic to me. And you and I play together like that a lot.
Hmm.
It's more the merrier. It's just kind of the way I look at it. I think we're on that again, one of those philosophies of the heart-centered business.
Right.
What I noticed though was that there were a lot of gaps, and they're community-facing businesses, right? The stores, the fair owners, anybody that's trying to promote these businesses, do their workshops, entrepreneurs that are established here in Colorado Springs. I would see them at the Body Mind Spirit events, or various events, Baloo Elisa, all along the Front Range here, down into Pueblo
Hmm.
and beyond into Canyon City. Right? And when I would visit these places and these folks, they're all heart-centered. They want to do good, they want to help people, and they've figured out how they want to do that, and they're in inspired action. Yet the business part of it and what comes along with it can be a little bit treacherous. The community facing folks are spending so much time working with the community, they're not getting together. I started to notice that the ownership, that they know each other, didn't really have an opportunity to connect. And the Abundant Soul conference idea was born from asking fair owners, shop owners, those who were promoting these kinds of events, running them, local practitioners, those who are running like even EE systems in the Colorado area, anybody aligned with holistic health. What were their thoughts about getting together in a way that amplified their business? And to me, it's this culmination of tribes on both sides. Here in Colorado Springs, where I live now, I've been here a couple of years. My mom and I moved to here in the early 90s, and she still lives in the same house. Okay. So there's a connection here for me. And I come back here and notice this, and I'm in this community. And it's not so much that I think they need help as much as we could be a lot more cohesive. There's a way to bring a lot of these folks together. Everybody that's community facing, the more they will work together and pull together, the bigger those communities will get, the bigger their reach will be. Colorado Springs has a very big military presence. It also has a very big religious presence. It's also got a really high amount of metaphysical aligned and holistic business presences, and getting those folks together from different groups is what I do. I mean, I that's you mentioned the Public Speakers Association. It's why I'm partnered with the LA Tribune to establish the Speakers Bureau with them, is because it really is about making the connections and bringing people together. This is heartfelt because it's in two things that really matter to me. It's in the industry I love, and it's in my personal community. The target being, to bring not just local leaders together, but I'm also bringing the folks that I know that work at a national and even international level. TED speakers. We got a TED speaker, we got a TEDx speaker, we got the 247th most traveled man in the world. I am not kidding. That is the moniker for Ernesto Verdugo. The folks that are coming in are really are leaders in the industry, and they're aligned in a way that is about the abundance, right?
Mm.
And Donna Campbell, who is our keynote speaker, she is the actual author of The Abundant Soul, the book, The Abundant Soul. So, I mean, that's my fairy godmother. We work together.
Right.
She's one of my mentors. It's a
Hmm.
pretty easy play to do the
Right.
Abundant Soul conference together.
Right. And so one of the things that I definitely wanted to reach out to folks, even if you do not live in Colorado and there's no way for you to get to this conference, please realize you do want to get in touch with Jason, if for no other reason than to let him know, hey, I'm interested in this, because he and Donna are actually thinking of taking this on the road. And so if you have a community that is seeking, or really one of the thirsty horses that really wants to drink from this pond, please definitely reach out to Jason. So, Jason, how does somebody get a hold of you?
They can go directly to one of two places. The easiest one to remember is calljasontoday.com.
Isn't that fabulous?
Calljasontoday.com.
That is so great that you got that. Oh my gosh, I love that domain.
Yeah, so
Lovely.
really easy to just hop on calljasontoday.com, and you can see some of the things that I do and what I offer. Whether it's with the Speakers Bureau, if there's speakers out there that are interested, I always love to have a conversation. Or if you're looking for something else in your business, or some maybe just some Akashic information, there's an opportunity there to just have a 30-minute conversation. I love to have those opportunities to connect, because in that time we can find out what's going on, how we want to work together, how we can help each other. And that's one of my first questions is, how can I help?
Hmm.
So call jasontoday.com and find out for yourself.
And so, thank you so much for being with us today, Jason. Any last thoughts before we go?
Many, many thanks and abundance to you, Janine, and
Oh,
your team
thank
for
you.
setting this up. I know what it takes, and you guys have made me so comfortable behind the scenes, and this was such an easy flow and opportunity. I would encourage anybody else to definitely take part in this, because we've interviewed before that this was a whole next level. Thanks to the team and to the listeners. You guys, please stay on your journey. Keep asking the questions, and the answers are there. They're somewhere there for you. The fact you're asking the questions is your step of awareness, and you deserve to have some credit and a foundation to stand on with that. The fact you're asking the questions is the gift. So please continue.
And that's Jason Antalek, a very dear friend of mine. And I'm Janine Bolon, and we're going to sign off for today. And I want to say thank you so much for listening in. Continue on next episode. We always are there to help you save time, save your money, save your knowledge, or in this case, save your sanity. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on the Janine Bolon Show.